This is Housebound. I'm Chris.
I'm Holly.
I'm Ashlyn.
I'm Greg.
And you're invited. Welcome to Housebound, a podcast we made because we needed company. In it, we talk about things that are on their mind that day, and I don't have a good title for this, so what I'm going to be talking about is knowing a little bit about everything, but not a lot about one thing, if that makes sense. You are familiar with the term jack of all trades, I imagine.
Yar.
Yar, okay. That's a resounding yar from the pirate. That's
what I've always wanted.
And are you familiar with Master of None?
Okay, that's the same saying.
Is that the same thing?
Yeah.
I feel as though they have different connotations. So hear me out. Jack of all trades being somebody that can do a whole bunch of things. So often I hear of, I don't know what a good example is, like an uncle that can fix a car and roof a house and do woodworking and I don't know, cook and knows a bit about growing plants or something. I'm just pulling random things out there, but you would refer to somebody like that as a jack of all trades, can do everything. Whereas I feel like a master of none would be somebody that doesn't have proficiency in anything. and I don't feel like either of those are adequate for what I'm trying to talk about, because what I'm trying to talk about is myself being somebody that has over the years accumulated, I'm trying to phrase this correctly, but accumulated
experience.
Experience or knowledge in day-to-day things that are important for sure and can benefit you in the long run, but I don't have a doctorate in any of these things, and I don't. And so, I don't want to talk about things like biology. That's not the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure you don't want to?
I'm sure I don't want to talk.
I would love to talk about biology with you.
We can give you an episode to talk about biology.
Talk about biology.
But not with the same biology you're chatting about.
Yeah, no.
Oh, there we go.
No.
That's a very separate biology.
No. Now I'm not sure which biology I was referencing.
Yeah, what?
I'll leave that up to you, the listener, to decide. But I want to
choice.
Choose your own adventure on this podcast.
To hear the original ending, continue listening. To hear the alternate ending, skip to timestamp. I do want to preface this conversation about myself with saying that I do consider myself to be curious by nature, but I don't want that to be confused with, and specifically for the people that know me, I don't confuse that with adventurous.
Because adventurous means you want to go outside.
I don't think anybody
Sure.
that does know you would confuse those things.
No, I just want to make sure that nobody's what is he talking about? You know, when people
being
get
very
famous
clear.
and then they
Get famous.
people get famous and then suddenly things come out about them that
Yeah.
are untrue that you thought were true, or true that aren't that you thought were untrue. So I'm not making stuff up.
No one will be confused for when we get famous.
No, if I were to introduce
yeah.
you, I'd say Chris, not an outdoorsman.
Anyways,
Can I tell you the whole quote
of what?
of the jack of all trades?
There's a quote?
There's a quote
So
about the
it's a
jack
saying.
of all
Actual
trades.
saying, jack of all trades, master of none, though oftentimes better than master of one. And most people don't hear the
Okay,
end part.
so
of it.
so master of none
Master of
is
none.
is a
So you don't have a doctorate in anything.
You're a Padawan in everything.
All the
You're just
things.
not a Jedi Master.
Well, I think what I'm trying to get at is that master of none. Okay, I was thinking of it as a separate term, but here it's being used as part of the descriptive of jack of all trades.
Yeah.
So they're not
Yeah.
two separate things. This is just a portion of explanation of what makes up a jack of all trades.
Yeah, basically.
I'm not saying I'm a jack of all trades. I'm not saying
All
that.
the trades. No, we understand.
Just of yeah. And like obviously I have a job. So I would consider myself somewhat proficient at my job. And I
hope so.
you know, and so I'm also not saying that I am completely uneducated, but I just wanted to chat about I guess about being educated in things because and so this is where I'll launch into a bit of a tangent so you guys can all sit back because you don't have to talk for a while.
Oh, okay.
Growing up, I did not have an interest in things that classmates of mine, specifically the male classmates, had a lot of interest in. So sports, I didn't have a terrible interest in that. Vehicles, like whether that's, I think most of it would have been, there was one kid who like drew cars. So I guess I would consider that an interest in cars, but I would more consider that an interest in art, which I also didn't have a huge interest in. Like I didn't have a terrible drive to be artistic.
You weren't interested in anything?
Well, or animals. Like we didn't have pets growing up, and we've talked about that. I think episode 14, we talked about that. So I wasn't obsessed with animals or anything like that.
Wait. Did you just say episode 14?
Something like that.
Maybe.
He did.
Here,
Did
I'm gonna.
Did you know what episode we talked about animals in?
Well, he
I
spent
think
so
so.
much more
That's
time
so
on them.
intense. That needs to be acknowledged. That's at least a master of something.
Oh, maybe.
Master of the Housebound podcast
No.
discography.
That's a well-used skill.
If I can't find it, we're cutting this part.
It's episode 16.
60.
Is that what you said?
Oh, it's
You're
close.
close. No, you said 14.
14.
I said 14.
That's pretty
oh,
close.
What was 14?
living in a post-COVID-19 world.
Oh,
Nothing
that's not
nothing
the same.
related to it. Anyways,
Sorry.
Nearly
Anyways.
master.
okay, so pretty close. Not even a master of knowing which episodes we have recorded. Thanks for joining us. So I usually spent my time reading. I was obsessed with going to the library and binging series of books as a kid. And so I know there were numerous times that my dad he didn't like try to push me into enjoying hockey or baseball, but those were the sports that I remember him watching on TV when I was younger. And I know that he probably desired that I was interested in those things, but I wasn't really
Your mom
interested.
has made the statement, Christopher, your dad tried so hard.
You are a failure as a son, and you're a disappointment as a child.
Enjoy sports with you, and you were like super not interested.
Yeesh. But so as a result of that, growing up with and growing up to the point of where I was now considered a young adult. So we're talking high school, grade 10, 11, 12. And there were things that made me nervous because I didn't feel educated on them to make the right decisions, if that makes sense. So here's a prime example, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with this, mostly because it's a big beef that people have with the industry. You take your vehicle to a mechanic's shop and you all already know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And they're like, and they say to you,
They're
oh,
like, what sound is it making?
well, and then they laugh at you. Yeah, no, usually it's the customer that serves up the sound completely unasked
Describe the
for.
problem. It's making a noise.
Sometimes that's the most educated description I can provide.
But like you go there and they give you a list of things that are wrong with your car, and sure, they're the professionals, so theoretically, and they will give you the best information about what's wrong with your car, and so you should be able to just trust them. Now, unfortunately, you can't just trust everybody.
People.
And so
I tell you.
so what I find is that when I get in a situation like that where they go, there's this and this and this that's wrong, and it needs to be done at these points in the lifespan of the car, or it needs to happen now, and you don't know enough about it to say, or here's another example: when you go to a car rental agency and they say, would you like this insurance, and would you like this coverage, and would you like the car to have these additional things? And you're like, yeah, sure, I'll get that because that makes sense. And then you find out later, well, my driver's license covers that. They just sold me on other things. And so I think it got born out of a little bit of me being nervous in these situations, not feeling like I could stand up for myself because I didn't feel like I had a leg to stand on. Throw back to the pirate at the beginning of the episode.
Yarr.
And I felt like trapped, or maybe not stupid, but like I just felt helpless. So
Do you know what that sounds like? That sounds like Enneagram 1.
does it actually though? Because
Yeah,
that person's usually
one of
very
the-
like forceful, and
One of the points of the description in Enneagram 1 is that they need to be able to make the best choice. When there's a selection of options, you don't necessarily choose the easiest one. You don't necessarily choose the guess one
straightforward.
or whatever. It has to be the best option, the most right option, the most correctest of options is the one that you must select. Or that's usually
And
described
if
in
you can't
Enneagram
do
1.
that, then you would feel helpless.
Yes, then you would feel trapped because you can't make the best decision in that situation.
Yeah, that's fair.
now, like, I don't want to be put into a box, so I would probably argue that might be amplified because of my personality in these situations, but I would maybe suggest that everybody, regardless of
Oh, totally.
like, they would maybe
Yeah.
feel it on different
Nobody's
levels.
like, I purposely choose the wrong option and then live with the consequences.
Okay, devil's advocate here. I have definitely been like, I don't care which option it is. Just somebody do something.
That's fair.
And
yeah.
to me, there probably was a right and a wrong option, but I can deal with the consequences no matter
Yeah.
what. So let's do it. Like, somebody make the wrong choice. That's fine. I don't mind. Greg's thinking
I don't
really
know.
hard.
I don't know where I land. I probably just depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Where sometimes I'm like, whatever. And then other times I'm like, nope, I have to think about this really hard and pick the best deal, right? Or
Oh,
the
gosh.
Best. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the vehicle mechanic example is more of a generally people think that they can't be trusted, and so whenever somebody suggests that you have to pay for something, you always know that it's a salesmanship thing. And
Well, and there's also something about having money on the line, like a good
Oh,
amount
for
of
sure.
money on the line for mechanics.
yeah. Well,
They're like, do all these things, and you're like, that's $4,000. You're not gonna get $4,000 out
Yeah.
of me. That's just impossible.
yeah. So, are there things that make you folks nervous simply because you don't feel educated about them? Something like do
definitely
you have an
car
example like
Everything having
vehicle?
to do with cars. There's no more helpless feeling that when the car stops working and I realize that I am throttling myself down the road in a machine that I do not understand the basics of how it functions.
Right.
Oh boy.
And I mean, I bet you there's a ton of people like I would, aside from the people that are mechanics or are very interested in cars, those people, everybody else probably would feel the same way.
Yeah.
They'd be like, well, I guess I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So is there anything else other than vehicles? Vehicles are really easy to riff on because
Oh, and
Okay,
my house that
what-
I live in.
One more vehicle
like
thing, though.
housekeep. Okay.
Like just even just going for an oil change and they tell you, oh, your like
Filter, your air filter.
Yeah, it needs to be replaced. Like I'm sure a lot of people have that panic moment of like, do I replace it now? Like it kind of
Is
looks
it actually
okay. Like
necessary?
yeah. So, but I don't know.
You said homes. When did you say homes?
just like
I
whenever
feel like that's a
something
good
stops
thing.
working in the house.
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
heater's
that's
not
fair.
working or the air conditioning's not working or whatever. I'm like, well, use this every day.
Do these things make y'all like panic though? Because I feel like when something goes wrong, I'm like, okay, what are my possibilities? And I don't panic about it. I just make a
I think
list.
more for me, it's frustrating.
Yeah,
Like when I'm like,
I feel
crap,
that.
now I have to like replace this thing and go out to the store and pick this up.
Or another example, we just got a dog, and the other day the dog chewed on something and then swallowed it, and he should not have. And it was concerning. And he didn't seem concerned, but
he did not seem concerned at all.
future dog was going to be concerned. I would imagine. Now, I'm not a professing expert in animals. And so what I did was I looked online for somebody to call first before looking online for solutions, because what I have found is that when you look online for solutions before talking to somebody that would be considered an expert, you go to the expert down the road with all of these preconceived notions about what could be a possibility, and then when they tell you about things, you're throwing what about this situation and this situation, because they're in the back of your mind because you read them already and you want to know if they're viable options, and then that's frustrating to them. I've been on the other end of that. Anyways, and so what I did was I called a vet and I just got some information about, like if they could induce regurgitation or what the surgery would be like. And then after that, considering my options, I also looked for what other people have done when they've been in the same situation. And then from there, I could a little bit understand what some people took a little bit of freedom or liberties with, and what some people were probably doing following vet's orders. And so that's another example of like, I felt like fearful. I felt like nervous because I didn't know anything about it.
Just to let you know, our dog is fine.
Yes. Not to make anybody panic. He lived through it. But like that's another example. And stuff like an electronics system, like a heater or an AC unit that goes down, I'm frustrated by that, but I'm not ridiculously concerned by that because I know that like it's a machine and there's a person out there that can fix that particular machine. But there's another issue that happened with the house that we're living in currently, where the issue that was happening was comprised of something that did not make any sense to me as to why the house would be built that way. And so I was frustrated with that too, because like I don't even understand how to stop it from continuing to be an issue, or how to even, like, I can call somebody and ask them, but I don't even know how to describe it, because it's like, well, this hole isn't here and it should be there. And then they're like, what's the hole for? And I don't know. But somebody that does know what it is looks at it and goes, oh, that's obviously supposed to be for this. And they just never got filled, or the hole was misdrilled or something. Anyways, without getting into specifics, any other examples?
I don't.
Or do you not feel that way?
No.
You're nonplussed by any of life's
not like the way that you're
at-yous?
talking about. Like, for instance, with that part on our house, I think I know the situation that you're talking about. And I was just like, well, we can't do anything about it until something terrible happens. And then I have options of things to do about it. So I'm just not going to worry about it unless the terrible thing happens. And then I will call somebody to deal with it because it's happened. Yeah, it did not cause me terrible stress. Also, though, I view my life as an adventure book. And so when things like that happen, I'm like, ooh, it's a fun adventure. Even though it's not really fun in the moment.
Oh, that sounds like a much easier way to live.
I enjoy it.
For me, it's car stuff. I get so stressed out about car stuff because I just feel so incredibly and instantly vulnerable.
Can you change your tire?
I have not.
Way to out her on the podcast.
Okay. But this is something that I learned about vehicles.
Yeah.
I learned specifically how to change my own tires and how to do my own oil.
I cannot do my own oil. I have watched people change the tire on my car and have narrated the process a couple of times. So I feel like if you gave me the tools and said go, I could figure my way out to a solution, but have I actually done it? Nah.
See, like the reason I brought it up is because I feel far more comfortable with my car now that there are a few things that I can take care of myself. Even like knowing how to check the oil or the antifreeze or whatever. Just like really simple things that I can check. Not that I do them anymore because Chris is sitting here and he does everything with our car that we need to do.
Wow.
I don't do anything like that anymore since we got married. So I don't have to worry about it. But like, I feel like those would be nice, easy ways for you to feel more comfortable with it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
So I was looking into if this was a phenomena that others experienced, or if this was just a personality based thing like we were talking about. And I came across some articles that kind of talked a little bit about it. I'm sure if I went and talked to a psychologist or something about it, they would be able to give me more direct advice as to what this could be or what this is a manifestation of or something like that. I stepped in a gopher hole when I was a child. I'm PTSD from that or something, like, you know.
I hope
That's
not.
a very Saskatchewan.
But what
Did the internet say that you were neurodivergent?
not that I found.
Okay, dang.
So what I did find was an article that talked about how living under your parents' roof can make it hard to come out of your comfort zone. So there are people that are introverts and people that are extroverts, and contrary to popular belief, it's not so much that one of them is outgoing and one of them is not outgoing. It has more to do with the way that you recharge your energy. And so an introvert will more than likely, not as an exact rule, but more than likely prefer to be by themselves
They would
for
prefer
an amount of
to
time.
become a human burrito and read for a few hours and then go see people again.
Sure, maybe. Or days. It depends on the
Yeah,
person.
I like days. Let's do days.
We have a mutual friend who will much rather prefer to make cross-province trips in the dead of night to visit somebody towns away or even a province away, and then come back the next day and be ready for a 3-day movie marathon or something like that. Like,
It's because he does not get tired from people. He is like,
he recharges
"More
from people.
people!"
Yeah. So as an example, but when you're living at home as a young kid and young adult, as you're starting to develop your interests and your personalities and what will become the foundation of who you are once you move out and move on with your life from having your parents always taking care of you and worrying about that stuff for you. It probably has a lot to do with how your parents raise you, I would imagine, the whole nature versus nurture argument. But
well, that's fair. I was pretty much free roam.
free
So
range child.
Maybe that's why I don't worry about things.
But as kids, I think we're
Grass
typically
fed, free range.
hormone free.
I don't know about that one.
As kids, we're more concerned with having fun than working on knowledge building. And so it takes school, which everybody hates except for a few people that don't. Actually,
love school.
and
too.
and most
okay.
people get tired of studying and get tired of learning. But when you do apply yourself to some of these things and you do create a knowledge base for them and an enjoyment of them, then that becomes part of what drives you. And so if you or your parents haven't made a concentrated effort to kind of push you out of your boundaries, and even then, my parents definitely made an effort to push all of me and my siblings out of our comfort zones regularly, because they knew what doors could be open to us, not what all doors would open to us, but what the potential there was for us if we just chose to take a piece of this pie and try it out, and this one and that one, and maybe eventually we'd find one that we really liked.
Eat all the pie.
And what I've found is that it's easy to learn something. You don't have to be a professional in anything to be able to just understand the basics of it. And so because my dad didn't specifically, he wasn't a hockey player when I was a kid, so he didn't teach me hockey and didn't grow up at the rink on the ice. And because he didn't force me into doing deck building or something with him, he was a landscaper for several years when I was a kid as his job. And I remember being interested in the stuff he was doing, but he didn't make me go to work with him every day and learn the trade kind of thing. It was just kind of up to me.
Maybe you'd like the outside more if he did. Come on, Calvin.
I don't know. He'll never hear this, so
Yeah.
you can razz him all you want. So what I found was that, like I said earlier, when I just like had a question or a concern about something and I just looked it up on the internet, or talked to somebody that was more experienced in it or a professional in it than more so than I was, it gave me a little bit of comfort knowing that at least I had a foundation of which to understand when I went to get my oil changed and they said, oh, just so you know, this air filter looks a little dirty. Usually we recommend changing it when you can't see through it anymore because it's too dusty, versus them just like me going to a parts store and buying my own air filter for $10 cheaper and just putting it in, because the only thing you need to know how to do is unscrew the 5 or 6 screws that are holding the air intake cover down, and you can just replace your cabin filter or your engine air filter, like no problem. I probably wouldn't try to do the oil change myself, although it probably wouldn't be terribly hard because people do it all the time.
It's really not hard.
You know, and
if
it's
I
like,
can do it, anybody can.
at the very least, I understand like a little bit about where somebody's maybe trying to get you on something. And so recently somebody asked me, when you start reading or researching something, do you go down a rabbit hole and get lost in that? And that made me think about this specifically. And the answer is, I wouldn't call it a rabbit hole. I will maybe spend a little bit of time in that moment going from article to article, because an article will probably tell you an answer, but then it'll reference things that aren't part of the description of that answer. And so I'll go and find out what those references are so that I can understand a little bit of farther away from the solution or the problem, and I can work my way back so that I understand a little bit of the surrounding knowledge of what's going on and what's working. So rather than just being like, oh, I can go buy my own air filter down the street for a couple bucks cheaper and just doing that, I also find out how often should you change your air filter. What driving conditions make the air filter become more dirty quicker. And so then I can evaluate, have I been driving this much? Have I been driving in these conditions? Oh, that's why it looks like it's a little bit damaged or chewed up. Like, you know, rather than just being instantly, I don't want to drop another $40 right now, I just wanted to get my oil changed kind of thing. And so I feel like that has helped alleviate some of that.
Good
that
old
stress.
internet.
Well, and
Giving
it's,
us all them answers.
and like definitely talk to people that knows, like if you have a friend that's a mechanic, like just ask them. Like we have a friend that's worked on vehicles for years. And he's given us stories that are way beyond something that I would ever attempt to do myself. So I'm not going to attempt to do everything myself. I just want to know a little bit enough to be comfortable. So I'll search something online, find out what I'll need to know, but also find out how it works, like
a little bit more broadly.
a little bit more broadly. And that just gives me that additional comfort, I guess.
Which is good research, because like if you're in school and you research something to answer a question on an assignment, and you can answer that question and then your teacher asks you further things about it, and you cannot answer those things, then the teacher knows you did not actually do this assignment. You just found the answers, which is not the same as understanding the concept.
Yeah. See, when I have these sorts of problems, I have a specific source that I go to. And this source in particular, I can usually find the answers, but occasionally by just consulting the source, the answer will solve itself and sometimes also provide me with free supper.
Yeah.
And that source is my dad.
I was going to say. Oh, Dad, there's a problem. And he's like, it's fixed now.
So this is where that discrepancy would be in like the Enya type, where I would have maybe the drive to do it myself or understand it myself, and your drive is still there, but it's mostly just, oh no, there's an issue, how does it get solved? As long as somebody solves it, that's fine.
Yeah.
And for myself personally, I would prefer to at least understand. Like, you might gain the knowledge over a period of time of dealing with the problem over and over again, but I would prefer to be like, the next time this happens, I want to know where to start.
Because you want to be prepared.
I do want to be prepared,
Well,
but I also want to know, like, I also want to know how to keep it from happening in the future if I can avoid it, which if it means doing something in advance of the problem showing up, I would much rather do that. Yes, I guess that would be being prepared still, but I feel like that's also just being proactive.
You're a achiever, right?
On the Enneagram?
Yeah. Well, what's
It's called like
Reformer
the
or something?
achiever, the reformer, or no, reformer's Chris,
Reformer's
or
Chris.
the
Oh.
professional, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you probably are like, you want to be able to do well for other people and for yourself, but you know what things you're not good at, and so you choose to not.
don't wanna
you
do
don't
those things.
bother pursuing
Yeah,
those.
that's fair.
Right. So yeah. Whereas I feel you're probably more like you want to know a little bit of how things tick, just so that like you can make informed decisions. And
Yeah, and that's literally it. Like, I don't ever want to become a mechanic, and I don't ever want to become a doctor, and I don't, ever want to become the person that's in charge of a $1 trillion movie franchise that's based on beloved characters from some other source. Like, I don't want to have that pressure necessarily, because I'm comfortable with what I do know of my own work and what I am passionate about. I just want to be able to go through life, and if something falls off or something comes unattached or something gets hurt or like anything like that, I want to know at least just where to start. And I think that just makes me feel more confident in life, and makes me seem like it probably has to do with me wanting to be seen as a benefit to have around, because that's like, oh, Chris knew what to do, or Chris knew where to start. And so, yeah, I don't know. And maybe that gets the better of me, but I don't know. I like to learn some new things now and again. So maybe it's also scratching an itch that I don't really think about until I'm face to face with a problem.
Maybe.
So I guess just to wrap it up, how do you educate yourself on new things? If there's something that you're thinking about, something that's a desire for you, or something that you're worried or nervous about, and you wish to be informed about it. I mean, Ashlyn's given us an example of like
call
with
Dad.
vehicles, you just you call your dad, and it's like maybe
I used to do that until my dad was in Panama when I crashed my car. And I was like, I can't even call my
Oh,
dad.
I just call my other dad.
Oh,
I didn't have another
Father-in-law.
dad at that point.
I cycle through both my dads. Then we move on to moms. Uncles are next.
I have good sources and bad sources that I check. The good sources are like studies of things that I want to learn, and bad sources are Reddit.
and are they bad because there's no way to filter the information, or are they just bad because everything on there is incorrect?
Oh no, lots of times things are correct, but it's also a lot of anecdotal evidence of things.
Sure.
completely.
So it's like, yes, this was somebody's experience, and so you can take that into account, but you have to take it with a grain of salt, because this was one person's experience with this thing, or their understanding of this physical law that I'm trying to teach, or something like that. So it's not the best source of information. It's handy to like get examples from and stuff, but yeah, usually I go for peer-reviewed studies when I have the chance. But if it's something like a car or something like that, I tend to call my dad, and when my dad is like, I don't know, I don't do anything about it. I don't panic, but I don't have to do anything like that anymore because you do it all, so that's fine.
Yeah, I feel for when it comes to fixing something, then that would be like YouTube to like watch somebody do something. I don't want to read a step by step on how to do it.
Sure.
I would much
a
rather
wiki
just
how
like
or
see it.
something.
Yeah.
watch it. And however, if it's more like information that I want to like verify or something, then that would be more checking for an article, and then probably not going with that article, but going from where they're quoting from, and then going from the source that guy quotes from. Because then at that point, I'm like, hey, now I'm at the original source. So this is probably, I can actually make a far more informed decision rather than having two interpretations, or an interpretation of the source.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, anyways, that's just a little bit about me. But I guess I would encourage people that are listening that if there's something that you don't feel confident in, don't feel the pressure to need to be a
Expert.
in that, yeah, just in order to wrap your head around it. So if there's something that you're struggling with understanding, find somebody that does know about it, talk to them about it, and also use online sources. Online sources are also there are online sources written by people that know things that you might not be able to talk to in person. Just be wary of where you're getting your information, of course, because it's the worldwide internet out there. So
This example is only going to hit home with a few select people, but I recently have been thinking about this and thought, there's a reason that in chemistry we start with like 7 different incorrect views of how atoms work.
Yeah.
In order to get us like to the point where we can understand how they actually work, because we still don't know how they actually work. But like that first picture of how atoms work or molecules work isn't correct in almost any way. But we still teach it in school, right? Like, and so you can understand a concept without actually knowing all of the details of something. So I think that's a good piece of information. So all of you chemistry nerds out there.
And I also feel that like there's a certain amount of knowing something for yourself, but then knowing to be able to help other people. But also, if you know too much about something, you've now reached the threshold where you can't help other people because you try to explain it to them and it goes over their head.
Yeah.
So there actually is like a threshold of like how far is too far and how,
That's the difference between good professors and bad professors,
Yes.
though, because
Yeah.
you can have professors that have PhDs in their fields that are really bad at explaining what they're talking about. But then you can have profs that are PhDs in their field in like multiple fields and are so good at dumbing it down, quote unquote, enough for their students to like really grasp what's going on. Yeah, so I feel like there's a threshold, but also some sort of personality thing in there as well, where it's just like, I don't expect you to know this, so let's make it as simple as possible.
Well, if there's something that you have taught yourself out of necessity or just pure interest, or if there's something that you want to know more about and you haven't quite started down that path, let us know what that is. Email at us at thehouseboundpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on social media. We have Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and just send us a direct message. You can also, if you'd be so kind as to rate us on the platform that you're listening to us on, if that's an option. That just helps more people see our stuff and allows us to continue producing content. Mostly not because we would get any bounce back from that rating or anything, but just because we feel a bit better about ourselves for having spent the time on it. So